I want to share my screen there. Hello, everybody. I really don't like looking at myself on the screen. So today we're discussing Go-Go Gadgets, was the name that we chose for this talk, just purely because we find that every time we go and see somebody, it's quite common that we'll be asked if there's something, you know, to help me blow my nose, is there something to help me brush my teeth? And it is just coming up regularly, and we thought that perhaps by using today's forum as a sharing platform as well, not just me talking to you, but perhaps at the end sharing what might work for people in their journey, that would be great resource to have. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and share my screen so I can see my PowerPoint presentation, but I don't really want to talk with the PowerPoint presentation, Stacey, so how do I get rid of so that I can still just sort of, right.
What do you want to do? Sorry?
I just want to be able to show certain screens of it, but that's okay.
Oh, I just unshare when you don't want to share.
Oh, okay. All right. Cool bananas. All right. So just today as an introduction, we all know that motor neurone disease causes difficulties in some aspects of our everyday lives, but it is different for everybody. So today's focus is more going to be about household items that can become difficult in our everyday use. So we're going to look at a range, and I'm going to try and do that through the house, go from, you know, front door to bathroom to bedroom, that sort of scenario, just so that we have a, there we go, it seems a little bit better, thank you. Just so we have the ability to see those gadgets in the rooms that we're talking about. And I guess the message I want to take home from this is that because MND is progressive and it's all about adapting and adjusting to our changing function, and this can be really difficult, but sometimes these gadgets can help with that adjustment and help us with our independence for longer. So it's about trying to find a new normal sometimes for our lives, okay? So when I'm talking about gadgets or activities of daily living, what I'm actually referring to is what we commonly branch these activities of. I'll just put it on, it might be easier the way I'm talking to it. So is that going to work? Yeah. Well, that's what we're going to be doing today, actually. Sorry, they're sort of what I want to touch on. And if there is any topics that I haven't sort of put in there, please, you know, feel free to send me a message. But really what I'm looking at is, yeah, what do we mean by aids of daily living? Because occupational therapists, we're always asking you, how are you going in your activities of daily living? So I'm going to let you know what I mean by that and what our role is in helping you with that. Like I said before, we're going to look at each room in the house. And because I've said Go-Go Gadgets, Peter and I sort of wanted to keep it at sort of the $500 mark and below, things that you could possibly buy off the shelf or commercially access in shops. But I will, just for some of you tech savvy loving people, I will at the very end go into some of the more expensive specialised equipment that's out there now. It's amazing what we can get. In saying that, I also wanted to say that I am by no means an expert in that, and we often have to go further afield to find those consultants in those areas. And funding options is obviously a big one. So if we know what we want, how are we going to fund them, where to get them, and just keep in mind that sometimes there is no single solution to any of these things, and we have to get creative. Okay. So looking at there we go. So looking at ADLs, what we call ADLs, I just want you to think about your life referring to these topics. So things that we often cover is your mobility, how we're moving around, moving around the community, how do we transfer, eating, drinking, grooming. These are all things that we took for granted and perhaps are still taking for granted, but with the progression of motor neuron and our journey through, we might start to have issues in these areas, okay? And so that's what we mean by ADLs. Toileting, dressing, those activities that we need to be able to do each day to remain independent or to get us through the day. Also, just wanted to keep in mind what we call instrumental ADLs or domestic ADLs, because they're just as important. They're the domestic tasks like cooking, cleaning, shopping, getting about, and keeping the house clean. So these are all big roles in our lives, and sometimes with the MND journey, we lose the ability to do these roles, and it can be quite a brief process too, when we have to allocate it or delegate it to someone else when we really still love to cook, or we still really love to go and see the shop, do the shopping and plan the shopping trips. So just be aware that there might be gadgets and gizmos to help with those things as well. All right, so for those of you that haven't had the pleasure of meeting an occupational therapist, we're just a strange bunch of people that have a unique skill set, really, and it's all about trying to increase people's independence and try and help them find ways to manage their health conditions if their health conditions are impacting in those ADLs. Yes, we do provide advice. Yes, we can prescribe equipment and help to organise it. But the thing I love most about my job as an OT is that creativeness that we have to do in brainstorming with our lovely clients in what will work for them, because no two individuals are the same. So yes, we've got historically ideas that might have worked or gadgets that might have worked for somebody, but the big thing I want you to take away here is that there's not a perfect solution, and we do need to trial things. It's so important to trial. And by chatting with OTs and sharing honestly the areas that you're having problems with, we know how to strategically move forward and plan for those things. So, all right. So, how can they help me? Are we seeing this? Oh, yep. So, yeah. So, I'm going to talk to this screen if that's okay. So, looking at how we first, access our homes. And I've put here small modifications because we are talking about gadgets and trying to keep things under a certain pricing. So thinking about how we access our homes, sometimes modifications can be small. Sometimes they don't have to be permanent either. We can access them commercially, which makes it a lot quicker for us than waiting for a builder or somebody to come in and do a major mod. So, major mods can be disruptive, they can be costly, and they take a lot of time. So is there ways that we can go about doing minor mods, putting gadgets in place that might help us? And as you can see on the screen, we've got some wedges that you can get commercially. These are just made out of recycled tyre, the ones down in the left-hand corner. We do have little portable ramp systems that allow people to get out into their backyards and get over little step thresholds. And they come in lots of different sizes and lengths to help with the height of steps in people's homes. And then there's some rail configurations, and a lot of rails can be customised as well to suit, as you can see in the right top corner there, that's been customised, that one for the height and the length that we need. Yeah. Okay. So that's about accessibility. And the same thing goes with, each room in the house we'll talk about as well. Yeah, there it is. Yep. So there we go. So that way now you get to see my ugly face for a little bit. So thinking about moving through the house now, if we head into the bedroom, there's different things we can do in the bedroom to help us be a bit more independent or feel more comfortable. Actually, I should just stay on the share screen. Sorry, it's going to be easier because I've got pictures coming up. I'll just take you to those pictures there. Okay. Oh, we're seeing pictures. There we go. So, sorry. Stacey's helping me out. So be aware that we can change the nature of the bed. So rather than going first off straight away for something like a hospital bed, which changes the whole configuration of our bedroom and leads to issues with intimacy with our partners, if we have, if we're with family, we could try changing the nature of your existing bed. And that might be as simple as raising the height of it using blocks, such as the one in the middle there that you can see, so that it's a better height for you to transfer on. Sometimes we've actually cut the legs off beds to bring them down in height as well. There are different positioning tools such as wedges and pillows and bolsters that can help get you comfortable in bed. You can see things like the little leg raiser there, the little blue hoop thing, which helps people to pull their legs, which can be very heavy, up into bed, allowing them to be a little bit more independent in getting in and out of bed. And we've included also there things like bed cradles, which keep your blankets off your feet. The one at the little bottom there is what's called a bed stick that also slots under your mattress to help you pull up in bed if your arm function, you know, if you still have strong arm functioning, and it allows you to sit up in bed. And one that's really useful and we hear a lot about is, you know, I can't move in bed, I'm literally stuck. And we have up in the corner there, there's different types of sheets you can get. Silk sheets used to be in the past, but now these days you can get different ones like satin and polycotton that allow you to move easier in bed because you're sort of sliding nicely and not getting stuck by the friction. So by looking at all of those sorts of gadgets, this means we're controlling the environment a little bit easier and making you a little bit more independent. But like I said, these are all the low end types of gadgets. Obviously, you can go the higher end and get into some very expensive beds as well. And there's a place for those. There's always a place for those sorts of things. Okay. All right, so I'll just scooch us down to the next picture and talk to the picture. So then we've moved from bedroom into bathroom. And this is an area where a lot of people struggle. A, because it's a wet environment and your confidence about slipping and fall increases. But there's a lot of little minor mods that we can start with before thinking even about doing major mods. So it can be as simple as introducing into the bathroom to help preserve your strength and reduce fatigue. The one I've pictured there, the one that Peter and I included, is a transfer bench. And the reason we like these is because they work over a bathtub, but they also work across a shower threshold as well. And they're height adjustable and they allow you to slide across that threshold. So there's no stepping up and over. Okay, so they're really useful, and you can get ones that are on rollers as well. So they actually roll you in and out. So they're good little minor, you know, mods that you can put in place. And then once you're sitting, there's a whole heap of other little minor gadgets that can help. Things like automated shampoo dispensaries and soap dispensaries, you know, automated toothpaste dispensers, just so that we're not having to use our hands to squeeze bottles, or if you're worried about dropping bottles. The good old soap on a rope, that was around when I went through my training. And it still has a place today because we can link that onto our hands. So if we don't have good, strong hand functioning, you've got the ability to not drop the soap. Shower gel is also super popular on a mitt. By putting it on a mitt, again, we're able to easily use it for, you know, washing. We can put things onto suction caps, and I probably can't see that too clearly, but up in the top, there's a little hand brush, I think it is, on suction caps, but you can put other things on suction caps and stick them to your walls or on the floor and scoot your leg over it, or you know, brush your fingers across it. But by having them suctioned, you're not having to hold them. Lots of different long handled aids as well, so that you can reach places that you didn't think you could reach before. And probably the one thing we didn't include there was our toilet seats. So there's all sorts, and some of you may have come into contact with these already, over toilet aids to raise the height of the toilet, to make it easy to get up and off. There are actually little toilet thrones as well. There's even little pressure cushions that can fit on your toilet seat to help if sitting is hard, because those seats are very hard. Other little things to consider is fake floors into your shower. If your shower is a step down, we can actually build up the floor with a little fake floor. So these are all, you know, minor cost effective equipment and aids to help out. Okay, So that's the bathroom, and hopefully like you'll be able to have lots of questions for me as we're going through. Have a little think about where your areas of problems might be. So moving into like the kitchen now. Again, as we struggle with things like our hand functioning, there are lots of gadgets and gizmos, and we've only just put a few little ideas here. These are the most sort of common ones. So first off, you might find that you're using things like built-up handles onto your spoons and forks and knives, and that just helps with your grasp of objects. But it doesn't have to be limited to spoons and knives. That kind of tubing can be purchased and put onto any other little items, such as a pen or a toothbrush, to build up your handles. If grasp is really hard, you can see up in the top corner there is what we call a cuff, and that can just be slipped on and your spoon can be popped into it, a stylus can be popped into it, a toothbrush can be popped into it, and they're using a bowl with a little lip on it so that you can sort of scoop your food into the bowl and catch it so it doesn't go over the edge and onto the table. Other items there, I'm just having a look what else we've included. We've included a type of cup which has a cutout. That type of cup allows people to actually, without much head tilt, get the liquid that they need. And obviously you've got things like straws and sipper cups and all those sorts of things as well. It's what's going to work best for you as the individual. I particularly like the kettle tipper. This is a really popular one. Looks really modern and it's really light to use, and I'm sure a few of you already have this one. It's very useful, so you're not lifting anything heavy. But there are tippers for other things as well. So there've been tippers devised for pots and pans as well, so you can tip water out of the pots and pans. So, and then we've got one-touch buttons, and these are all automated. You just have to press them once and they'll open things like your jars and your cans and your bottle tops, I think three. They've been very effective and very popular. Just looking there. So also for people who love to cook and are struggling with holding things in place, non-slip matting is great. And then you've got modified cutting boards there, where they've just really put some nails in and screwed down the grater just to hold everything in place, which gives you the ability to then use it easier. But these days you can actually buy your veggies pre-cut. We're quite fortunate that there's quite a lot out there for those sorts of issues. But a lot of these gadgets, especially the one like the cutting board one, obviously that's been a homemade one, and people get quite creative when they have to. So it's good to share if you come across anything like that. Okay. So we didn't include lounge room because hopefully most people have adequate seating in their lounge room. They've got a spot that they're comfortable. Again, we can raise chairs up easily, but most people find that the electric recline chair is really the chair of choice, just because it's super comfortable and you can get multiple different positions in that chair. Unfortunately, they are over $500, but we can hire those types of equipment. And once sitting in those chairs, just looking at how those remotes can be modified to suit you. Long-handled aids, so when you're sitting in the chair and you've dropped something, you might be able to pick it up with a long-handled piece of dowel or something like that, an easy reacher. That's the other things to take into consideration. I'm just going to touch on intimacy, just because a lot of people scooch over this subject, but it is what we call an ADL. It does consist in our ADLs. And when anyone has a health condition, it does impact on our ability to be intimate, and we miss out so much. And so this area is a highly popular point of discussion, and never feel embarrassed to bring it up because it is normal. We're all human. There are places that specialise specifically, places like Relationships Australia and specialty nurses that can help with strategies, but there are also gadgets available, and these gadgets are readily available commercially. You can Google them, or LifeTech, which I'll go into a bit more detail about what LifeTech is, has information on some of them, and you can also get customised ones. So I've just put a few examples there. So the chair obviously is a specific type of positioning chair to assist with being intimate, and then we've got a few little battery operated devices to help as well. But yeah, getting creative with being intimate is very important. And another area, I guess we don't focus too much because we tend to delegate it out a lot, is those activities that, you know, our domestic activities, things like hanging washing and ironing and mowing the lawn. And for some of us, we're quite happy to delegate that out to other people. But others, you know, we hold tightly to what we used to be able to do, and we're very proud when we can still manage to organise and do these things. So I've just included a few little things here. The Mrs. Peg's clothesline is a really great, lightweight, portable clothesline that is generally shoulder height and comes in different lengths. So it can hold sheets and towels, and by having it at shoulder height, we actually do use less energy, and it is easier for us. So things to consider is obviously we want to try and reduce fatigue where possible, because we want to be able to use the energy we do have for meaningful activities. So if you want to hang washing, by all means hang it, but try and look at gadgets to help with that. But yes, we also do want that goal of trying to reduce your respiratory load and fatigue and making those tasks simpler for you. I'm just trying to think, what else have I written there? Okay, so these ones that we've included are all robots. So you've got the robotic vacuum cleaner. These are really popular, even for people who don't have MND, but you see them zooming all around the place. And you can now get robotic lawnmowers, which the dog is going to love chasing, and they're really quite effective and work well. It's just the setting up of them. So you do need to have someone who, hopefully in the family, is a little bit tech savvy and can help you set them up so that they know the perimeters that they have to operate in. Other things to consider if you're living in a sort of older style home is converting all your taps to lever taps to make them easier to use. That's a really cost-effective, cheap way of making it easier to access your taps. We've included there little shopping trolleys to help with carrying, to reduce fatigue. And the other little one is an indoor one, actually. It's an indoor rollator. So we're all very familiar with the wheelie walkers that we use when we access the community and around our house. But this one has actually been purpose-built for indoor carrying of, say, plates, cups of tea and coffee, because we all know that's very difficult to negotiate a wheelie walker and a cup of coffee at the same time. So this allows you to do it, and it's really solid, has a lovely full-length brake as well, and is cost-effective. So, sorry, I'm zooming through this. Hopefully everyone will have lots of questions at the end. All right, so there's no denying that computers play a huge role, and technology is progressing so very, very quickly. And so these days, you know, technology is really reducing the barriers for accessing things. We can use it now for reading, for writing, communicating with others, that sort of thing, and searching the internet for information. So having that access to a computer and still being able to use it even when our hand function or our voice isn't as strong as it used to be is so very important in making us feel independent. And just recently, there's been some success with people using eye gaze to drive their power wheelchairs. Okay, so that's just come about. Steve Hawkins, the very smart mathematician who was wheelchair bound for so very long, is a really good example of how he used computer access and technology to still be a very, you know, relevant figure in the university sector and in research. So I've just put up there, as you can see, eye gaze, Lomax systems, QHAR, NeoNode switches, and to be honest, they all change very rapidly. So with technology, that is one thing just to keep in mind, that apps and applications from the computer, they all do change very regularly. and you need tech support if you're going to be buying some of these more expensive gadgets. So ensuring that you do have really good tech support. I've also just included there some larger button things. So you've got a TV remote, the telephone, those sorts of things too might help with accessing different equipment. But yeah, you can see an eye gaze mounted. You can see another lady, she's using a stylus. So she's got a gross motor grasp on a stylus to access her iPad. The one with the little sort of over the ear there, that's a, I can't ever say it right, a QHAR, which allows you, yes, to, like an infrared, to access computers. Different types of switches. So you've got proximity switches that allow you to turn things on or off, or to operate your iPad or computer. So some of these switches you can hire, which is a very cost-effective way in accessing these gadgets. Other items obviously you have to buy, like download apps and things like that, which you might have to buy, but some of them are quite cost-effective too, if they work for you. But that's the big story, is trialing things and ensuring that they do work for you and do what you want them to do. So, you know, some of these high-tech things are fantastic, but if you're just wanting to browse the internet, then some of these things may be too costly for that sort of thing. But if you're wanting to continue working, then yes, you do need a technology that might be a bit more costly. Okay, so the big thing is, yeah, you want it to work for you in what you want it to do. You want it to be portable, perhaps, so that you can use it when you're out and about. And yeah, having a look at the best access options for you. Okay. Just coming down. So getting a little bit sort of more expensive as well is the good old automation. So these days you can get a lot more gadgets that are automated, and some of these are off the shelf. Like you would have seen ads for Alexis, can you turn the music on? Or, you know, Google, can you please tell me what the weather's going to be? Or find me a recipe for, you know, pumpkin soup or something like that. So we now have these smart home systems that can enhance our independence. So there's quite a lot of companies that specialise in this area, which we can put you in touch with, or OTs can put you in touch with. But it can do anything from operating your window blinds to your heating, to your lights, that sort of thing. And I've just included there as well the alert buttons, because that's an important one too, that we all have a way of alerting our loved ones if we need help or getting help. So, and that can be through alert buttons that have a switch similar to, I'll go back to there. So these sorts of switches that we might be able to press with even our feet or an elbow, and they have like a doorbell system so that our carers are alerted. Or we may just have the simple custom commercial alert button which we wear around our neck. Okay, so that's the sort of automation. We can have doors swing open, bidets flush, that sort of thing can all be done by automation. Just a matter of sourcing it and trialing it. So here I've just also included other things just to open up your minds to gadgets and things that have obviously been developed with people in mind. So we've got the Obi feeder up the top there. It's completely automatic feeder, computerized feeder, robot feeder. I haven't actually seen this one in use, but there's obviously a place for it. So again, there, it's whether people want to trial that. Down below you can see the good old bidet, and these come with all different types of controls. So you can get the commercial bidets, and some are even off, I think, off the shelf at Bunnings, which are the sort of cheaper version. And these are the slightly more expensive version where the remotes can also be foot controlled if necessary. I remember somebody in one of the support groups saying something about self-dryers. So I've included a picture there of a self-dryer. That's what's more wall-mounted, you can see there. And it is literally just a matter of standing in front of this device and, yeah, air blowing at you, nice warm air blowing at you and drying you. So that's a very expensive way of getting dried, but sometimes a very necessary way if people want to remain independent. So that's that one there. Obviously a little bit more than the $500 off the shelf. Leisure pursuits is a good one too to consider for gadgets. There's gadgets for all sorts of leisure pursuits. So there you can see there's tandem bikes. in all sorts of different configurations so people can still enjoy accessing the outdoors. The picture below is probably not very clear, but it is actually painting. So the person is painting using a switch to assist there. But there are all sorts of different mounting scenarios to mount crafts, and so people can still enjoy things that they previously loved. Okay. So something that I really want to focus on is what to keep in mind when we are purchasing aids and gadgets, because sometimes we get lost in the moment and we do some, impulse buying perhaps. Is just looking at the retailer is reputable. So read some reviews perhaps, make sure it's not a flimsy copy from China. That might be an issue because we do get lots of copies and they look good and they look like the exact thing, but often, take weeks to arrive, and then when they do come are just a copy of them. So just making sure you read reviews, ensure that you're using it for the correct purpose that it's intended. Will there need to be servicing or maintenance, and who's going to provide that for you? Is it, is there a warranty period to assist with that? Some of these items do require assembly, and believe me, I'm perceptually challenged when it comes to that, and they're not always easy, and the instructions aren't always easy. So making sure there's support for that, or you ensure that they're already set up on delivery. Compatible with your changing needs. Like I said before, there's no perfect solution, and I totally believe in starting small, simplest options first, and that way moving along with the changing needs, because I don't think there's often one item that's going to meet your needs the whole journey long. So being able to adapt and adjust, but also considering things like weight restrictions to equipment. Working heights, often, that's for everybody. For accessing computers, making sure that at a good working height that supports our muscles that might be weaker and fatigued. So we want to support those muscles by having good working heights. And a big one, when you're buying something, always ask, can I trial it first? Is there a returns policy? Those sorts of things, common sense things that we sometimes forget to ask. Funding options. So there's a few different ways we can fund different gadgets. The NDIS does have a consumable budgets for under 1,500. So that's for your small sort of what they call AT1 and 2 categories, which are those simpler gadgets that are off the shelf. Often, sometimes they might need a letter of support to back them up, but generally you can buy them. They're the things like your toilet seats and your kettle tippers and things like that, that you just have to provide the receipt, and NDIS will then refund them. My aged care packages, again there, if they're assessed as necessary under your aged care package, it might be considered that would be useful to be purchased, and so they might be able to help you there. For those people not eligible for any other schemes, there is the medical aid subsidy scheme, which helps to buy certain items. I'm not going to say it will allow you to buy any gadget that you want. It's generally based at things like the self-care items like mobile shower commodes and wheelchairs and hoists and bigger items. So they're really funding all the bigger items, but useful to keep in mind. There's obviously hire from organisations such as ourselves. A lot of the computer equipment can be also hired. There's a few places interstate that will send things up for people so that the costs are a little bit more reasonable. But you can also hire from chemists, reputable chemists as well, depending on the items that you want. Some of the bigger companies will, like Think Mobility and Adacare and Queensland Rehab, all those sorts of bigger companies will also hire. The smaller gadgets, if they're something that's a self-care gadget, they possibly won't hire it if it's, obviously for hygiene. So just keeping that in mind. And I've just included second-hand equipment there that these days, a lot of people will find these nifty gadgets on these sale and swap places and Disability Equipment Australia. These are reputable websites to find new disability aids and equipment. And then lastly, I've just put resources in there. So I wanted to talk a little bit about LifeTech, because it is one that I often recommend people have a look at. And it used to be called in the good old days the Independent Living Centre, because that's what it was. You used to be able to go and to the centre and walk into these scenarios. They walk into a bathroom scenario, a kitchen scenario, and they would have a wonderful showroom of all these gadgets on hand that you could play with. And unfortunately, in this day and age, everything's become privatised. And so LifeTech has actually become a private service where they'll have health professionals on staff, but they want you to make an appointment. You have to go there, be assessed, and then they will, from their equipment pool, set you up with gadgets that they think will work. But it is still a very useful tool to do that if necessary. But what they do provide is a fantastic database on their website that you can browse in different categories. And it's where I got most of the pictures from today. And Peter and I use this regularly to brainstorm ideas of what might work for people. So they're listed here, and it's a national database, so they have suppliers from all over Australia. So that's the website there. And it is always useful if you have the opportunity to drive to one of these rehab companies, and that's just a small list there, but they all have showrooms as well, so it might be a way that you can trial things, is both visiting a showroom and having a hands-on feel of some of these little gadgets and getting some ideas. Like I said, reputable chemists can order things in. And then lastly, I've got their TADQ. So that's Technical Aids for the Disabled in Queensland, and they're amazing. They're a whole bunch of retired specialist people like engineers and builders and stuff who volunteer their time to customise items that aren't available for clients. So sometimes, you know, we have an idea of what would be fantastic, and then they make it for us. And it really does work, and they've done some wonderful things in the past. So yes, they're a good one to remember too. So I flew through that, and I had all these good intentions to use lovely backgrounds all the time, but I didn't.
Okay, can I?
Yeah.
Let me just try and change the screen so we can see everyone again. We'll unmute everyone.
Oh, they won't let me. Go. What?
Right, I will mute everyone. Unmute. What's happening here? Okay, everyone that's muted themselves, I'm unable to unmute you. So if you wanted to unmute yourself now, then now would be the time to ask questions. So first of all, I just want to say thank you to Miriam. For those of you that don't know, Miriam is one of our occupational therapists at MND Queensland. And while she presented on her own today, the content was very much contributed to by our other occupational therapists. So Peter came up with a number of ideas for the gadgets, and they very much worked together on it. So thank you for that. So does anyone have any questions that they wanted to ask us at this time?
Yeah, what was this?
Excellent. No questions at all?
Loud into silence. Now, obviously, I mean, that's just touching on, like I said, if you have the ability, do browse the LifeTech database, because it is amazing and mind-blowing the amount of things out there. And I think this carer support group is a great forum for like perhaps discussing and problems that people might be having and brainstorming together what solutions you have found that have worked for you, because it's such a learning curve. Even for all of us, we come up with amazing strategies when we hear what other people have done. So yeah.
Yeah, and another forum for doing that as well, I'm not sure which way to go to get on through, is also for those of you that are on Facebook, our private Facebook is a good opportunity for discussion for the might have ideas. So if you're on Facebook and you want to connect with other people who might help you solve some of those problems, then I would encourage you to join that group. It's just a MND Queensland community. All right, well, if there's no final questions, then, or no questions at all, then I really hope you all found that useful. I particularly thought it was good to have some simple solutions that we might not have thought of, and there's certainly things that you can solve.
They've recorded it, so I've asked that, Stacey.
Sorry? Oh, I don't think that was for me. So yeah, hopefully there's simple solutions that you can put into place yourself for some of them. But if you do need some advice and support, or you want some advice and support, then obviously that's what Peter and Miriam are here for. So don't hesitate to get in contact.
Thank you.
What I'm going to do is I will be launching a new series of speakers coming up. So you will get that email about that next week. But we're always hoping for suggestions from you around what you would find useful as well. So if you've got some ideas about the kind of subjects, topics you want us to cover, or the professionals that you would like to hear from, then please don't hesitate to email me directly, or that support groups at mndaq.org.au email address. Okay, all right, well, thank you very much for joining us. It's been lovely to see all your faces, and hope to see you again in the future. Bye.